Welcome, everybody. I have been looking forward to this for a while. You know her as the fairy job mom, but she is now the co-founder of Influence by Verbatim. I'm tremendously excited, very excited. Alexis, Rivera, Scott, how are you today?
I'm great, Dave. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. So, like I said, just before we started recording here a little bit, I have so much to get to, and I think that your people who follow you, if you haven't followed Alexis so far, please do. It's so fun to see kind of what you put out every day. Um, but I just kind of want to jump in a little bit. Like I went back on your experience, and I was expecting to see like entrepreneur and all the way through for the past like 10, 15 years. And I got like the crazy coupon lady, right? Like as of like 5 years ago, you were in like a what I would call a normal kind of role. And then all of a sudden this entrepreneurial bug hit. And now the past couple of years, you have just grown. Like what happened? What started the whole ball rolling with you to kind of get you out of the norm and into the entrepreneurial world?
Well, I think as I grew in my career and surrounded myself with entrepreneurs, so entering the startup world was really a big catalyst for me in developing my career and just understanding what the potential and possibilities were. Um, and so after I interestingly, my role at the Crazy Coupon Lady was not a long time. I took that job when I was moving here to Idaho from California, and I took it because they allowed me to start remotely. So it was my first remote job um, in kind of, a marketing space, what have you. So it was really a learning experience in some ways. It was also very eye-opening for me with what I didn't want in a role. And I was there for about 6 months, and then I ended up taking my role at Vacasa, which Vacasa is a bigger company actually, but operated very, very much like a startup. Like I cannot stress that enough. So I had a lot of pull in what I could make happen and the impact that I could have on the organization, which was really eye-opening for me. Prior to Crazy Coupon Lady, I had worked at hotels and larger organizations primarily. And so when you work for larger companies, you're more of a cog in the wheel. There's many of you, and you just get your work done and you go home at the end of the day, and there's not necessarily as much of that emotional attachment to the results that you're putting out. Whereas when you are at a startup or on a smaller team, I believe is more of that personal connection, or at least there tends to be for me. Um, when I got laid off at Vacasa, I took a job at a company called Aspireship, and I was employee number 5. So I don't know if anyone listening has heard of the term intrapreneur, but that was very much what I was. I took extreme ownership of my role there. The founders of the company were extremely supportive. And I remember someone telling me, this role will change your career. And it did. So in that role, I was speaking to a ton of sales leaders and founders and investors. And so my network changed dramatically when I was in that role. Um, I ended up leaving the company by choice. I was done growing there. I guess you would say there wasn't really room for me to grow, and I wanted a break from selling, which was the main catalyst for me wanting to leave. Um, I ended up looking for about 6 months, taking my time, really assessing what I wanted to do next. I ended up taking a job with a tech company that I thought was my dream role. It was not, spoiler alert. Um, and, I think that that's a whole nother lesson of really understanding ourselves and what is truly important to us in a role. But ultimately, my dissatisfaction in that company led me to saying, you know what, I'm going to do it. Because people have been asking me, why don't you just start your own thing? I don't understand. And I just kept saying, no, I like working with a team. I want support and what have you. And being that unhappy tipped me over the edge to just say, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. The time is now. And ultimately, starting my own company got me fired. even though it was not in conflict, totally different function, totally different industry. I mean, it was just like super far apart. But ultimately, it led me to where I am now. And there's been a ton of learning this year, and I'm excited for what's to come.
Oh, I mean, if you take a look at your path, it's so interesting to me when I start looking back and I start seeing the content and then I see how it, kind of progresses, right? In terms of what you're putting out and how comfortable you are. You can almost see a little bit, I think, and I'm just going to stretch it a little bit, maybe, of what you started doing in the past 5, 6, 7 months of putting yourself out there. Now, I would consider you putting yourself out there a lot. Like you put your kids there, you've talked on your mental health, you've talked on your physical, you've talked on a lot of things. Has that been a progression for you naturally? Or did you come there and say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to take this approach, and you kind of went with it.
No, so I think that the people who know me, quote unquote, in real life, know that I am a very open person. I'm terrible at secrets. I am very honest, almost to the point to where I have to like practice saying things a little gentler. But when people ask me a question, it's kind of like the thing where someone goes, "Oh my God, I love your shirt." I'm like, "Oh, it was $3 at the Goodwill and it's this brand and I found it this day and whatever. I just want to tell you all the great things about it." And my approach to content is a little bit similar in the sense of I am an open book, and I firmly believe that anything that I like, situations are unique but not unique, right? Like I'm going to go through things in life and I'm going to have my own perspective and my own experience, but I guarantee you there is at least one other human in this world who has gone through it. And finding those connections and finding those similarities is very comforting. And I think I'm the quote unquote brave one to put it out there and talk about it. But I think that it's worth it. It's worth it because it brings people, it draws people in, it connects people to me through shared experiences, and it ultimately makes people feel comfortable talking to me, which as a business owner is really important. A lot of my clients I didn't even know were watching me through the Fairy Job Mom. And all of a sudden they book time and they're like, "Oh yes, I've been following your content for years." Oh, who knew? Um, so it creates a sense of comfort, I think. And I have had conversations with executives because I do also do ghostwriting for executives. And I think some of them get a little bit scared when they think about the idea of sharing as much as I do. And I make it very clear, I am an extreme case, right? Like I am not the norm by any stretch of the imagination, nor does anyone need to share as much as I share on social media. I do it because I'm comfortable with it. I do it because it creates really great connections for me. Um, and it's like my journal, honestly. I mean, people don't know this, but I had a blog back in 2000 and I think 10. And I was a blogger. I was sharing my story and it still exists. Um, but it's very therapeutic, very cathartic.
Absolutely. I said that to a lot of people, and I just started doing it 3 years ago. I just
Okay.
kind of jumped in, and I was like anybody. I was like, oh, let's post to LinkedIn and that's it, and I'll like two things and be done. And by no stretch, don't get me wrong, am I doing the content, I would say, quality that you are, or a lot of people, but I find it therapeutic to me. I I find
Awesome.
it where I spend 20 minutes and just think, and I'm one of those people who does not schedule it. I like to come in
Right.
and wake up and go, hey, what am I thinking about today? Because if I'm thinking about it, then I think someone else may too,
Mhm.
and that's kind of how I write the best. Now, sometimes I have errors and sometimes I have to, kind of brainstorm a little bit more than maybe I should, but I always like to, the top of mind and real feelings. And this is who I am today, so it's interesting. From a standpoint though of you taking on this new venture. I think it's what, 2 months old now? You
Yeah.
and
Yep.
your partner Brianna.
Yes.
So how did that? Okay, now we go into you started your entrepreneurial piece, but and you knew Brianna prior to this partnership, right? You two had kind
Yes.
of worked together a little bit.
Yeah, so I met Brianna at the end, like fall of 2022 through a creator group. And we had a one-on-one call and got along really, really well. And then I traveled Arizona quite a bit. And on one of my trips in early 2023, we met and had lunch. And it was like one of those lunches where you feel like you've known the person forever. And, it was like hard to leave, right? And we just became really good friends. She also was a very integral part of me launching the Fairy Job Mom. She made my website. She made my second website. She helped me with my marketing messaging and just gave me some perspective as a friend and as a trained marketer. And I actually helped her get hired into the role that she had prior to us starting our business. So it's just kind of that ping pong of like helping each other out and just being really good friends. And in the fall of this year, she came to me and said, I want to start an agency and I want to start it with you. And I was like, oh, now my marketing background is far more skewed towards sales. I have had marketing roles. Obviously, my most recent role prior was a marketing role, but certainly not the decades of marketing experience that she has. And so I'm just thinking, okay, people have asked me to go into business with them more times than I could count. And generally speaking, it feels as though the person wants to leverage my social network to create their business idea. And I have turned down quite a few opportunities. With Brianna, she has 3 times as big of a following as I do. And
Really?
yeah, and she's got, a decade more experience in marketing than I do. She's been featured in all of these things. So I'm looking around like, wait a minute, what do you mean? And I said to her, I'm like, do you mean like as a freelancer or like, I'm not really understanding. And she goes, no, I want you to be my partner. And I just kind of thought for a second, I was like, what? Like me? Really? And we talked about it. I thought and prayed really hard on it to make sure that it was the right step for me because I had just started the Fairy Job Mom. So I didn't want to lose that piece of me and that passion that I have for hiring and talent and all of that. But after, doing some deep soul searching, I just thought, you know what? This is my season of yes. I trust her. She is absolutely brilliant. And if there was ever anyone I was going to start a marketing agency with, it would be her. So let's do it. And it's been incredible. So our parent brand is called Verbatim. A wing of that is influenced by Verbatim. Verbatim handles growth marketing, content strategy, LinkedIn, like all things LinkedIn content wise, and ghostwriting, et cetera. And then influenced by Verbatim is something we're super passionate about. So we gave it its own title, but it's LinkedIn influencer marketing. So we both are LinkedIn influencers. We work with brands to promote products and services that we believe in and that we think align with our audiences. And when you look at the business landscape right now, companies are starting to learn that, oh my gosh, my buyers are actually hanging out on LinkedIn. That would be a great place to spread the word. So we are pioneers in LinkedIn influencer marketing, and it has been incredible.
You beat me to it. So that's a hundred
Ah,
percent. It's 100% where I'm going. It's right there because you said this is just getting started. And I guess you kind of just alluded to it, saying brands are trying to figure this out right now, right? So, from your standpoint, do you think that because some people, and I've been vocal on this, I've posted on this, and I may be, at times I've said, hey, I'm not sure about this, right? Because
mhm.
I think you can see people that are different in posting, and all of a sudden now they're posting for something. I go, well, that's weird. I've never heard you comment on that. It seems outside your brand, and all of a sudden now you're in this, and you're tagging this company, and I go, I'm not sure about that, right? That now kind of gives me pause, right? Do you think that we're going to see an evolution of this in terms of, you know, more and more major brands getting out there and more people having the opportunity to be influencers and doing it? I
Yes.
don't want to call it the right way, but that's the only thing that comes to my mind right now, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, yes. I think that if you look at any social media channel, it's the same situation. What is interesting in what you mentioned is really the importance of brands strategically selecting their influencers and influencers really vetting who they choose to work with. So there are people that I can think of where I'm like, wow, you have like a lot of sponsored posts, like a lot. And before, their content was really centered around media informational stuff. Now it's more of that influencer space. And they are probably making a significant amount of income from that. And so on that sense, I applaud them that they have created a brand that is respected by these brands and the brands are willing to pay and what have you. It is a very delicate balance as a creator to determine what brands you want to align yourself with and which ones might not necessarily be the right fit for you and or your audience, and or if the product or service is actually terrible, that you don't want your name attached to that. So for seasoned influencers, there is a vetting process and you have to do your due diligence and determine, is this a brand that you want to align with? For me, I would rather work with fewer brands for longer tenures and stand very firmly behind the service or product that they provide. And you can see on my profile, I'm an ambassador. There are companies that you will see that I bring up a lot. The reason is because I truly believe in what they are offering. I think it's a great product. It's a great service. Their team is amazing and cares about their customers. There have also been others that I have turned down because I don't think it's the right fit.
Mhm.
Like I just, it's not the right fit for me. And I remember how I talked about being honest at the beginning. I am very honest and I don't ever want people who follow me or people who know me to question my honesty or an integrity. It's really, really important to me to maintain that. So I'm very selective, and a lot of influencers are selective. And especially the larger their followings get, the more selective they really have to be because so many companies are approaching them and saying, hey, we've got this great thing. Can you tell your people about it?
It's a space that I don't want to say monitor, but I'm going to just watch. I think I'm like a lot of people,
It's
right?
really
Where
fascinating.
I'm curious on what this is going to kind of play out, and I hope it goes well. And I really do, and I'm sure it will. Like it's not going to stop. It's only going to grow and grow because brands now understand the reach and what could be, and people are doing it responsibly. And I think they have and companies like yourself now who can guide them right?
Yes.
From a brand
Yeah.
way and influencer way. And it's not just
Mhm.
the Wild West anymore. Now there's a little bit of structure to it and I think we're only going to see it grow. So for me, it's interesting, right? And I hope it heads, I hope it heads in the right direction. And I think it will. And I guess the right direction is a perspective. For me, I hope, more and more people align with their messaging and brands they like.
Yeah.
That's kind of my piece
And I
of
think
that.
too, the responsibility of the reader and or consumer is do your due diligence, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
anyone can share an idea or a suggestion or what have you, but ultimately you are
mhm.
responsible for what you decide to purchase
It's
or
fair.
participate in. And so do your due diligence.
It's
That's my
fair.
advice.
It's fair. All right. So you started the company a few months ago,
Yeah.
right? Which is different because now you have a partner and now
Yeah.
it's a little bit, I would say, of a greater scale than the Fairy Job Mom. Is that a fair,
Yeah.
accurate statement or is it very similar?
Very, very accurate.
Okay. So then what I'm curious on is, I guess, biggest lesson learned. Like, what did you learn over the past couple months? You're like, I never saw that coming. This is Brand, and maybe Brianna did. I think she's the analytical operation one, right, of
Yeah.
the team, right? The spreadsheets. But what have you learned personally over a couple months to say, man, I didn't see that one. That's, that's new or interesting to me.
I think having a very clear sales process has really been one that I did not anticipate, which sounds crazy because I was in sales for 8,000 years. But, when I look back at our first discovery calls, they were painful. I mean, it was like these open-ended conversations where we're like looking around at each other like, okay, well, what's next? Okay. Um, and we had a call with a mentor and he gave us some very sage advice and guidance. And once we had that conversation, I felt like everything that I had learned in my sales career, like magically came back in my head. Um, and so, the ability to have a purpose and a goal behind every call and really understand what we are offering But what I tell Brianna too is like, we're still ramping. Like we've only been doing this for about 60 days. So kudos to us for like actually having clients.
Oh,
And,
seriously.
I mean, like it's pretty incredible the amount of inbound interest that we have garnered from our own personal brands and from the work that we've done in the past. And um, so I'm very proud of us there, but there's always room for growth. And I think that we both are big time achievers. And so we are constantly pushing ourselves to do more and be better and grow and all of that, which on one hand is great. But the other day, we had a talk about the number of hours that we were working. And I just told her, like, okay, let's set priorities. Like these types of tasks are most important. These types of tasks are, yes, let's do them. And then these are like, if we get to them tasks, because we will burn out if we continue at this pace. So just did like a nice level set and reality check for ourselves of what we should be working on and the pace at which we should be working. I mean, we have so many ideas of things that we want to do and implement, and like we're both creative too, which is interesting because again, I'll be like idea day, and all of a sudden we've got 10 more things that we could be doing. So it's really just, prioritizing and making sure that we're doing the things that have the biggest impact for our company and just keep doing those.
Were you going well beyond and look, I've never started a business. I have the utmost respect for people who do it. I think it takes, for lack of a better word, a crazy amount of guts, right? And I've heard people say almost craziness to do it. But were you in like, hey, you're burning 12-hour days, or were you just going to on weekends, or what? How far were you going to where you had to scale it back?
We definitely have been working on weekends. Some days, very long hours because, and this is in no way a complaint. Like we are very fortunate that again, we've
Yeah,
had so much inbound interest,
yeah,
but when you are on calls all day, that doesn't leave you much time to execute. And we
yeah,
have clients that have projects that need to be executed on. So, we've just been very busy, and not busy in a bad way, but in a busy way, in
yeah.
a great way. But we've made some changes and just kind of shifted. And I think again, we're learning, we're growing, we're trying to figure out
Yeah.
best processes and all of that. I think the biggest thing that we have learned about each other is that as much as we like very many of the same things, we are two totally different people, which is actually great. Like it's
Mm.
really fantastic because we bring together two really great skill sets that are not necessarily overlapping in many places. And so there are tasks where I could be like, hey, can you do this? And she's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And then there are other things that I can do, no problem. And we just try to lean into our strengths and our native genius.
It's going to be cool to watch, right?
Yeah.
Like it's going to be really neat. And your story on LinkedIn, again, for those who don't follow, you can almost see your daily kind of what you guys are working and doing and such like that. Now, I'm going to go back to family a little bit.
Yeah.
You said you posted, and again, you're very open, which is
Yep.
tremendous because it gives me such
Yeah.
anything I can kind
Lots to
of
talk
go,
about.
right? But you said that your husband at one point in time said you're too cautious and your own worst enemy in terms of that. Is
Yes.
that still the case?
I don't think that I didn't say he thinks I'm too cautious. I think that he feels like I'm almost too honest. Like people are wanting to hire me and I'm like, "Oh, but you don't need me." And that was in relation to the fairy job mom, and it was true. And again, it goes back to me being open and honest, and that integrity piece, right, is so
Yeah.
important to me. I never want to push a service on someone that they don't need. I never want someone to be like, "Oh my gosh, that was a scam. Total waste of money." And so what I found with the fairy job mom that was really interesting was when I built my program, my eternally employable program, I built it with the type of client that I would have been working with in my previous job, which was pretty entry level career starters, seekers, what have you. What I did not anticipate was that actually the people who were attracted to my services were mid to senior to even executive level candidates. And so I would meet with them, and they don't need to necessarily know, the language to use around how to message a hiring manager or how to network, or it's just a very different conversation. So what I found was I'd be like, yeah, we'd have to customize this for you. Like, I don't think this is necessarily applicable to what you're doing right now. And he could hear these conversations and he's like, oh my God, stop. Like, you keep ruining all of these sales. And I'm like, yeah, but I would hate again for that to be my reputation where people are like, oh yeah, I hired her because XYZ, but really what she offered was this. Like, that's not who I am and that's not what I do. And so sadly, I mean, I lose a lot of potential income in that way because I was honest and I just said this isn't the right fit. But better to do that now than clean up a mess later.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I did read a lot of your stuff. So if I'm off, just let me know.
Okay.
Okay. Did you say you talked about like you and Brianna only wanting to work with like certain clients or really having an image of the clients you wanted to work with that as you started looking at this, you're like, wait, we want to work with these kind of clients?
Yeah. So what was really interesting, we both came from tech roles prior,
Mhm.
and we really thought, okay, we're going to leverage our network and we're going to get all these tech clients and what have you. And very quickly, we found that that actually wasn't who was number one attracted to us. Yes, there are some, and we work with some, and that's great, and we love them. But when we started to really look at the companies and entrepreneurs that we were super excited about working with, they were the companies and entrepreneurs who had a larger purpose. They were mission driven. They were looking to make an impact in the world in some way. And the way that I think about this is, yes, we're marketing. Okay, it's a business function, what have you. But when you remove the business component from that and you think about yourself as a catalyst for them to get farther reach, for them to make a bigger impact, it transforms how you look about your business relationship. And we would meet with these clients and hear what they were working on and just, sync up after the call and be like, oh my gosh, I want to work with them so badly. That is so cool. And we kept having that conversation and we're like, all right, let's be real here. Who is it that we want to work with? And we work with other companies, obviously, like there are companies who want to work with us, there's a fit there. But really, we had this conversation yesterday with someone who asked us, like, tell me about your ideal client. And we nailed it down to they've got to believe in marketing. Like, it is not our job to convince you that marketing is a great thing for your business. If you don't believe that, this is not a fit. Um, Being mission driven is a great bonus. It's not a requirement, but it does light our fire. We love that. Um, the other piece is being communicative and open with us. Like, we very firmly believe in transparency and clarity. And the last piece is having the budget and timeline to achieve what you want to achieve. We have certain requests of the length of time in which a company works with us. In marketing, it takes time to see results. It takes time to test things and see what's working. It takes time to optimize. And if a company does not believe that, it's not the right fit for us. And so we have made the decision that if a company isn't in line with our values and what we offer and the way in which we offer it, we have given ourselves permission to say this is probably not the right fit. And
Love
it's very
that.
empowering as a business
Love
owner to
that.
decide that and not be the one like begging someone for their business.
Right.
That's not to say we don't want to work with more companies. Of course we do, but we would rather make that decision on the front end than be very misaligned in our engagement with a company and then ultimately have them churn anyway. So
Love that. That's it. I always talk in every episode, I always say, hey, look, we only talk for 25, 30 minutes max, right?
yeah.
There's always going to be a few points of time when I go, yep, there it is. There's my 50 seconds. There it is. That's right. Like, if you take nothing else away, because I look at that from like leading a team,
Yeah.
we talk all the time. It's the same thing. If we're not the right fit, to not get into this engagement, that's not fair to hand off to CS and go, hey, that's on you now. Have fun with that.
Exactly.
Right. And I know from a two-person team, you're like, hey, we're the ones that have to deal with this. But still, what you just said applies to everybody out there in sales and marketing and understanding who, and then it's okay to say no. So I think, I mean, that point, I'm glad it was in my head. I'm like, I hope this is correct, but I'm glad I'm glad you shared that. I think it's empowering, and it's cool to hear you guys go through that at really such an early stage, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take you long to figure that out together.
No,
This
we
is
have
it.
been very, very fortunate, like I mentioned, where we've had a lot of inbound interest. And so we've had a lot of at bats where
Yeah.
we get to kind of decide. Um, and that's not the most common case, right? Like we're not over here just turning people down left and right, but it has happened a couple of times. And, we've had to really sit down and talk about it of like, okay, what makes sense here? How should we handle this? I do credit my former boss, Christine Rogers, from really instilling that in me. As I was having conversations with potential clients, she gave me full autonomy and trust. And if you don't feel that this is the right fit, like I give you permission to say no and to trust your gut on this, because I would rather you do that ahead of time than our team, like you said, have to clean up a mess or handle a client that ultimately, again, will churn. Like that's the moral of the story for all of this is they're not going to be your client long. Even though you might want them to be or not want them to be, like if it's not the right fit, it's ultimately not the right fit. So better to handle it now than deal with the mess.
Love it. Love it. Okay, we're at the end, and I always have a little bit of fun with everybody that I have on because there's those little nuances here that just I think are funny. Hopefully, others do. I'm sure you will as well. Okay,
Okay.
your mug collection,
Oh God.
right? Your coffee mug collection, some of which
Yes.
need like little
Oh,
emojis to go over the
yes.
words. I was like, all right, okay, right. So, what's your
Yes.
top three? Yeah, what's your top three mugs? Like, do you have a favorite mug?
I do. Oh gosh, I'm always getting new ones though, so that's the problem. But I have one that a girl, we're very close friends now, but she technically was a direct report of mine at Vacasa. She gave me one for Christmas the year that I was there that says HBIC, which I don't know if you know what that
I
means, but
do.
okay, that's what that means. And it's gold and it's fabulous and I love it. Um, I have, I have, the other thing is I really like mugs that have kind of unique shapes. And
Okay.
so there is a mug from Anthropology. I don't know if you've heard of that store, but it's very beautiful. It has an A on it, it's hand painted, and it has a very unique handle on it. I really like that one. Um, and I have another one that my girlfriend gave me for Christmas that says Chin Up Princess or the Crown Slips.
There you go. I've heard that
Oh.
that's a good. I mean, I saw there's a few mugs that had like the little emoji over it. I was like, all right. I was like little edgy on the mug.
Oh,
So I was like,
there, yes. Anything with the F word, I won't say it here, but I do drop F bombs all the time. And so if this was rated R, I would say the word, but it's not. We're being
that's not. I
professional.
mean, look, I have said I'm pretty sure on one of the episodes it has been said, but I always look, it's always it's
It's
However,
not on brand for
I
me,
come from Philadelphia. Like you're not gonna offend me with this, right? But
Right, right.
for those listening in the gym, we're fine.
Yep.
All
But
right.
yes, I do. I am a proponent of the F word.
I will not put that as a little clip for LinkedIn, but still funny. TikTok.
Mhm.
I didn't even know you were on it until In-N-Out Burger came out today.
I
Are
know.
you doing like TikTok with the kids? Are the kids now
No,
involved with the TikTok, or what's going on?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. Most of the time, my TikTok is me in my car. I call it car talk. And it's just me with like random musings. I tried to get a theme, like I was gonna do career TikTok and like be the fairy job mom and whatever. And I very quickly was like, you know what? LinkedIn is where I am professional me. And you will still learn a lot about me, but it is the professional version of me.
Mhm.
Where you can find the behind the scenes is on Instagram and on TikTok. And that's where
Really?
you'll see more of like my authentic, like maybe F bombs. You never know. Um, but you'll see like what I'm eating or what I'm doing, or if I get my nails done, what they look like, or what my kids doing that day, what my dog is doing. It's just kind of like behind the scenes.
The dog Olive, by the way, correct?
Olive, okay, Olive is my niece. She's not my dog.
Oh,
Yeah, so Olive is my dog niece. My brother
your dog
rescued
needs. Just
her.
make sure I'm tracking correctly.
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
my dog niece.
All right,
She
got
was
that. All right.
rescued in a box in
Oh,
North Carolina, actually.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Off
Yeah.
on that one. All right, last one. Actually, serious question.
Okay.
2024.
Yeah.
So what's our big goal? Like, what's the thing that we're going after in 2024?
To be on a magazine cover.
Really? Any one that you want to go after?
I don't know yet, but I have manifested the hell out of it and I have said it out loud about 1,000 times, but Brianna and I will be on a magazine cover.
All right, but don't have you on her back, or like don't do that thing where you like we're
Why?
up in.
That was so fun.
I
I
know,
love
but it
that
looked
picture.
dangerous. Very risk averse. Very like we
She's
can't have
strong.
you hurt.
She
All
is
right.
strong. She can do it.
Well, look, this has been really fun, and I always learn something here. I always, to me, this is the best part of my week. I get mentored by somebody who comes on, and I just ask a question and sit back and listen, and hope the questions is okay. But thank you so much for being on. Like, I hope everybody got something out of this. I hope Alexis, I hope we covered kind of what you were hoping to. But it's been really fun to
Yeah.
have you and just get to know more.
Likewise, it was really nice to meet you and appreciate you asking me. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Well, look, everybody, that's it. We're going to wrap this up. Thank you again for listening. Alexis, one more time, thank you. We have a few other folks. I'm actually back to back tonight. I have to
Oh,
wrap this one up. I know, right? I have to wrap this one up and get a snack and get back in. So stay tuned, everybody. And thanks again for listening. Take care.